What if I told you that your loneliness wasn't a punishment, but a promotion? That the silence you fear is actually making space for your transformation? Sis, this is not the season to break, it's the season to build. You weren't abandoned, you were set apart, you weren't rejected, you were rerouted. You are standing alone, not because you are weak, but because something powerful is rising up inside of you. This moment, this solitude is shaping the version of you that was always meant to emerge. A woman who stands alone is not forsaken. She is being fortified. And when she rises, the world will never be the same. A woman who finds herself alone is not lost. She is being lifted. She is not cast away. She is being called higher. There comes a moment in every woman's life when the very people, places, and comfort she once leaned on begin to shift. The calls stop. The invitations dry up. The circle gets smaller until one day she looks around and realizes she is standing all by herself. And in that moment, fear creeps in. That old whisper tries to convince her that she is unwanted, unseen, and unworthy. But I came to tell somebody today that whisper is a lie. Loneliness is not a curse. It's a classroom. It is the place where elevation begins, the space where distractions are stripped away so clarity can be revealed. You see, when you are surrounded by constant noise, you start to mistake the voices of others for your own. You begin to shape yourself into who they expect you to be instead of becoming who you were destined to be. But when you are set apart, when you find yourself walking this road alone, you are finally positioned to hear what has been calling you all along. This kind of isolation isn't about rejection, it's about redirection. There are some places you were never meant to stay, some relationships you were never meant to keep, some patterns you were never meant to repeat. But if everything remained the same, you would have never had the courage to step away. That's why the shift had to happen. That's why things had to fall apart. Because if they didn't, you would have kept settling in a space that was too small for you. You would have kept shrinking when you were called to expand. And let me tell you, sis, expansion requires separation. I know it doesn't feel good. I know the silence is loud, but what if this solitude isn't punishment, it's preparation? What if the loneliness you're experiencing is stretching you, growing you, building you into the kind of woman who can stand strong when the winds of life start blowing? A woman who doesn't waver when opinions shift, who doesn't bend when pressure comes, who doesn't break when people walk away. This season is not about who left, it's about who you're becoming. Elevation comes at a cost. The higher you go, the fewer people can go with you. Not because they are bad, but because they are not assigned to this next level of your journey. There are some weights you cannot carry if you're going to soar. Some connections, some mindsets, some comforts, they were good for where you were, but they cannot sustain where you're going. And I need you to catch this. If you fight to hold on to what is leaving, you will delay what is coming. You will block the very breakthrough you've been praying for. So what do you do when you find yourself alone? You shift your perspective. You stop mourning what was lost and start expecting what is being built. You stop craving familiar voices and start listening for divine instructions. You stop fearing solitude and start embracing the strength that is developing inside of you. Because when you are alone, you are unfiltered. When you are alone, you are raw, real, and ready. And that is exactly when transformation happens. There is a version of you that is waiting on the other side of this moment, a version of you that is bold, fearless, unshakable, a woman who doesn't need validation to know she is worthy, a woman who doesn't need permission to take up space, a woman who doesn't question whether she has a purpose because she walks in it every single day. But that version of you can only emerge when you stop fighting the process and start embracing the elevation. So, sis, dry your tears. Shake off the shame, lift your head. You are not being isolated. You are being ignited. You are not being punished. You are being positioned. And when this season is over, when you step into everything that has been waiting for you, you will look back and realize you were never alone. You were being led. You were being strengthened. You were standing in the very place where power is born. And when a woman stands in her power, there is nothing that can stop her from rising. A woman who stands alone is a woman who has met herself in the fire and decided she would not burn. She has walked through the kind of battles that should have broken her, endured storms that should have silenced her, Yet here she stands unmoved, unshaken, undefeated. There is a strength that only comes when you have no choice but to stand on your own 2 feet. When you can no longer rely on the applause, the affirmation, or the approval of others. When you have to dig deep and find out what you're really made of. It is in the moments when everything you leaned on is gone that you discover the power that has been inside of you all along. See, strength doesn't come from being surrounded. It comes from standing firm. It comes from learning how to carry yourself through the weight of uncertainty, how to hold your head up when life tries to bow you down, how to speak life over yourself when there is no one else around to do it for you. The truth is, if you always have someone holding you up, you'll never learn that you were built to stand. But standing alone doesn't mean standing empty. It means standing full of wisdom, full of resilience, full of purpose. There are seasons where your strength has to be built in silence, in solitude, in separation. It's not that you are being abandoned. You are being prepared. The woman you are today is not the woman you were yesterday. And the woman you are becoming is going to require a different level of power, a different level of discipline, a different level of confidence. You can't access that kind of growth while clinging to comfort. This is why you have to shift your mindset. Stop seeing solitude as suffering and start seeing it as strategy. Stop seeing loneliness as loss and start seeing it as a lesson. There is something being built in you in this moment that you are going to need for the road ahead. Strength is not given, it is developed. And it is only developed when you are tested, when you are stretched, when you are pushed beyond what you thought you could endure. So if you feel like you are standing alone, maybe it's because you've been chosen to be strengthened. Every strong woman you admire, every powerful woman you look up to has had a moment where she had to stand by herself, where she had to face opposition alone, where she had to fight battles that no one else even knew about. Because strength isn't just about what people see, it's about what you survive in the unseen. It's about the silent victories, the battles won in the midnight hour, the times you wanted to quit but chose to keep going anyway. That's where true power is born. You are not weak because you feel alone. You are strong because you are still standing. You are still pushing. You are still believing. You are still showing up for your purpose, even on the days when it would be easier to disappear. That's the kind of strength that cannot be faked. That's the kind of power that cannot be given. It has to be earned. And when a woman learns to stand in her own strength, when she realizes that her power has never been in the hands of others, she becomes unstoppable. She is no longer moved by opinions. She no longer seeks validation. She no longer waits for permission to rise because she knows she was built for this. She was designed to carry weight, to weather storms, to rise from what was meant to bury her. So don't despise this season. Don't rush to escape it. Don't let the silence make you doubt your strength. You are being refined. You are being fortified. You are learning that the power within you is greater than anything that has ever tried to break you. And when this season is over, when you emerge from this moment, you will not be the same. You will be stronger, wiser, bolder, ready. And when the world sees you rise, they will have no choice but to recognize the woman who stands alone is the woman who cannot be shaken. There comes a time when life will throw you into the fire, not to destroy you, but to refine you. A time when everything you thought was secure begins to shake, when the relationships you counted on begin to shift, when the doors you were sure would open slam shut in your face. And in that moment, when the flames start rising, you have two choices. You can let the fire consume you, or you can let it transform you. Some of the most powerful women I know didn't find their strength in comfort. They found it in the fire. They didn't discover their purpose when everything was perfect. They discovered it when everything was falling apart. Because fire has a way of burning off the excess, the distractions, the insecurities, the need for approval. It will strip you of everything you thought you needed so you can see what was truly within you all along. You may be in a season where the fire is hotter than it's ever been. You feel like you're being tested on every side. Your patience is being tested. Your faith is being tested. Your endurance is being tested. You've cried more tears than you can count. You've asked more questions than you have answers for, and you've wondered if you'll even make it through this. But let me tell you something, the fact that you are still standing, still fighting, still pushing forward, even in the fire, is proof that there is something unbreakable inside of you. The fire doesn't come to consume. The strong, it comes to reveal them. It comes to show you that what you thought would kill you is actually making you wiser. What you thought would destroy you is actually making you powerful. What you thought would be your ending is actually setting you up for a new beginning. That's why you can't despise the fire. You can't run from it. You can't wish it away, because there is something being developed in this moment that you will need for the next. Think about gold. It doesn't become pure by sitting on a shelf. It has to go through the fire. It has to be exposed to the heat, melted down, and refined before it reaches its highest value. And maybe that's what's happening to you. Maybe you were never meant to remain at the level you were on. Maybe the reason you're feeling the fire is because you're being purified, because you're being elevated, because there is a greater version of you waiting to emerge. And I know it's hard. I know it's uncomfortable. I know you feel like you're losing more than you're gaining. But if you could see the woman you're becoming, you would understand why you had to go through this process. If you could see the strength, the wisdom, the resilience that is being built within you, you would know that this fire is not here to punish you. It's here to prepare you. So don't give up in the fire. Don't let the heat make you forget who you are. Don't let the pressure convince you to settle for less than what you were created for. You have already survived too much to break now. You have already come too far to turn back now. You have already endured too much to let this moment define you when it was meant to refine you. One day you will look back on this season and realize that the fire wasn't your enemy. It was your transformation. That it didn't come to harm you, it came to heal you. That the very thing you thought would take you out was actually the thing that pushed you into your purpose. And when you emerge from this moment, when you step into the fullness of who you were always meant to be, you won't just be strong, you'll be unstoppable. There comes a time in a woman's life when she has to stop begging for a seat at a table that was never meant for her. A time when she has to stop forcing connections that were never designed to carry her into her next season. A time when she realizes that walking alone is better than walking in circles with people who don't see her, don't value her, and don't honor the calling on her life. That time is now. You have been asking why certain people left, why certain friendships faded, why certain doors refused to open. You have been questioning if you did something wrong, if you weren't good enough, if you should have tried harder. But let me tell you something, when you are destined for more, not everyone can go with you. When you are being positioned for elevation, there are connections that must be severed, relationships that must shift, and places you can no longer stay. Because what is waiting for you cannot fit into what was behind you. The breakaway is not a punishment. It is a blessing. It is a sign that you have outgrown what was once comfortable. A sign that the version of you that settled, that tolerated, that played small is no longer in control. There was a time when you accepted less because you didn't know your worth. A time when you held on to people who drained you because you were afraid of being alone. But now you are being introduced to a woman who is no longer afraid to walk away. A woman who is no longer clinging to what is familiar just because it feels safe. A woman who understands that breaking away is not just about leaving something behind. It's about making space for what is ahead. Some of you have been trying to revive relationships that expired a long time ago. You have been holding on to connections that are suffocating your growth. But let me ask you, if you have to beg someone to see your value, is that where you truly belong? If you have to constantly prove your worth, is that the kind of environment where your purpose can thrive? Some of the things you are crying over losing are the very things that were holding you back. Some of the people you are mourning were never meant to go with you in the first place. And the sooner you accept that, the sooner you can step into what has been waiting for you all along. I know it's hard. I know the in-between is lonely. I know it's tempting to run back to what feels familiar, even when you know it's not right for you. But trust me when I tell you the breakaway is necessary. You cannot heal in the same place that broke you. You cannot rise in an environment that refuses to see your wings. You cannot become who you were created to be while staying attached to things that were only meant to be temporary. So let them go. Let the friendship that drained you go. Let the relationship that made you doubt yourself go. Let the version of you that accepted less than what she deserved go. And watch what happens when you make space for something greater. Watch how peace replaces the anxiety. Watch how clarity replaces the confusion. Watch how strength replaces the fear. Because when you finally stop fighting for what was never yours, you make room for what was always meant for you. This is not a season to beg. This is not a season to chase. This is a season to stand tall, to trust the breaking, to believe that anything you lose in this moment is nothing compared to what you are about to gain. And when you finally step into everything that has been waiting for you, when you finally look around and realize that what you thought was a loss was actually your liberation, you will understand why the breakaway had to happen. You will see that you were never being rejected. You were being redirected. You were never being abandoned. You were being aligned. And in that moment, you will know that the woman who had the courage to let go is the same woman who is now free to rise. There comes a moment when you realize that the path in front of you looks nothing like the one you imagined. The plan you had so carefully crafted has unraveled. The people you thought would walk with you are no longer beside you, and the next step feels uncertain, unsteady, unfamiliar. This is where most people turn back. This is where fear whispers that you are lost, that you've made a mistake, that you should have never let go of what was comfortable. But let me tell you something. Just because the path is unclear doesn't mean it isn't leading you somewhere powerful. Just because you can't see the full picture doesn't mean you aren't being positioned for something greater. Too often we try to control the journey, we map out our steps, we plan our moves, and we convince ourselves that everything has to go a certain way in order for us to be successful. But what happens when the plan falls apart? What happens when life shifts in a way you didn't expect? Do you crumble? Do you retreat? Or do you dare to trust that even in the uncertainty, even in the confusion, even in the in-between, something is working in your favor? There is a reason you can't see the whole picture yet. There is a reason you are being asked to walk by faith instead of sight. Because if you could see everything right now, you might settle for something smaller than what is truly meant for you. If you could see the full plan, you might shrink back in fear, questioning whether you are really capable of stepping into it. So instead, you are being led step by step, lesson by lesson, breakthrough by breakthrough, so that by the time you reach your destination, you will have the strength, the wisdom, and the confidence to stand in it. You don't have to have it all figured out to keep moving. You don't have to see the finish line to take the next step. All you have to do is trust that what is ahead of you is greater than what is behind you. That even though you don't know how it will all come together, you are still being guided, still being shaped, still being positioned for something beyond your imagination. Some of you are afraid to move because you don't know where the road is leading. But let me ask you this. What if the unknown is actually your invitation to something greater? What if this uncertainty is actually your opportunity to build the kind of faith that cannot be shaken? Because the truth is, when you walk by sight alone, you are limited. You are limited to what you can see, to what you can calculate, to what makes sense in your mind. But when you learn to walk without all the answers, when you learn to trust even when the path isn't clear, you step into a different kind of power. A power that allows you to move forward even when the odds are stacked against you. A power that allows you to rise even when everything around you says you should fall. You are not lost, you are being led. You are not forgotten. You are being prepared. And just because you don't know how it will all come together doesn't mean it isn't already working in your favor. So stop waiting for the perfect conditions. Stop looking for proof before you take the next step. Stop holding yourself back because you don't have all the details. Move anyway, walk anyway, trust anyway. Because when you finally step out in faith, when you finally decide that fear will not keep you stuck, you will look back and realize that every detour, every delay, every unexpected turn was leading you somewhere beautiful all along. This journey is not about having all the answers. It's about learning to trust the process even when you don't. It's about believing that even in the waiting, even in the wandering, even in the unknown, you are still right where you need to be. And when the time is right, when the pieces finally come together, when you step into the fullness of what has been waiting for you, you will understand that the uncertainty was never meant to break you. It was meant to build you. And the woman who learned to walk in the dark will be the same woman who shines the brightest when she finally steps into the light. There comes a time when a woman must understand that the strength she's been searching for has been inside her all along. A time when she stops waiting for someone to come and save her, for the right circumstances to appear, for the perfect moment to arrive. A time when she realizes that everything she needs to rise, to fight, to conquer has already been placed within her. That time is now. You have spent too many days doubting yourself, too many nights wondering if you have what it takes. Too much energy convincing yourself that if things were different, if you had more support, if you had more resources, if you had more time, then maybe you could become the woman you were meant to be. But the truth is, you don't need more of anything. You just need to activate what is already within you. You need to tap into the power that has been buried beneath fear, beneath insecurity, beneath the lies that told you that you are not enough. Because you are enough. You always have been. From the moment you took your first breath, from the moment you survived battles that were meant to take you out, from the moment you kept going, even when everything in you wanted to quit, you were proving that you are more than capable. And yet you still question yourself. You still wonder if you have the strength to make it through the season. But let me remind you of something. You have already made it through seasons that tried to destroy you. You have already survived nights that felt like they would never end. You have already overcome obstacles that others didn't think you would make it past. So why do you doubt yourself now? Why do you question the power that has carried you this far? If you could see yourself the way the world sees you, you would stop underestimating your strength. If you could see the impact you've already made, the lives you've already touched, the resilience you've already displayed, you would stop waiting for permission to be great. You would stop seeking validation from people who could never understand the depth of what you carry. You were never meant to blend in. You were never meant to play small. You were never meant to dim your light just to make others comfortable. You were created to stand boldly in your power, to walk confidently in your calling, to own the fullness of who you are without apology. But that can only happen when you stop shrinking, when you stop hesitating, when you stop allowing fear to convince you that you are not worthy of the greatness that is pulling you forward. Because make no mistake, greatness is calling your name. Purpose is knocking at your door. Destiny is waiting for you to finally step into the fullness of who you were always meant to be. But nobody can do that for you. Nobody can hand you your confidence, your strength, your courage. That is something you must decide to claim for yourself. That is something you must be willing to fight for. So let this be the day you stop waiting. Let this be the day you stop doubting. Let this be the day you rise up and declare that you will no longer allow fear to control you. Because there is too much inside of you to waste another moment playing small. There is too much power, too much wisdom, too much resilience for you to keep holding back. It's time for you to take up space. It's time for you to own your voice. It's time for you to step fully into the strength that has been within you all along. And when you do, when you finally embrace the fullness of who you are, when you finally stop waiting for permission to be powerful, everything around you will begin to shift. The things that once held you back will no longer have power over you. The people who once doubted you will have no choice but to watch you rise. And the woman you are becoming will look back on this moment and thank you for choosing to believe in her. So stand tall, walk boldly, speak with authority, because you were never meant to live a life of fear. You were never meant to stay hidden. You were never meant to settle for anything less than the greatness that is within you. The time is now. The power is yours. And the world is waiting for you to finally rise. You have walked through the fire. You have stood alone. You have broken free from places that could no longer hold you. You have walked through uncertainty, through fear, through doubt, and yet you are still here, stronger, wiser, unshaken. This journey has not been easy. It has stretched you, tested you, and at times it has even made you question if you would make it. But look at you. Look at the woman you are becoming. Look at the way you have refused to let your past define you. Look at the way you have chosen to rise when everything in you wanted to give up. This moment is not just about what you have been through. It is about what you are stepping into. It is about the fire that refined you, the breaking that built you, the solitude that strengthened you. It is about the power you discovered when you had no choice but to stand on your own, because you are no longer the woman who questions her worth. You are no longer the woman who waits for permission. You are no longer the woman who shrinks to make others comfortable. You are the woman who stands boldly in her strength. You are the woman who walks in confidence, who speaks with authority, who moves with purpose. You are the woman who understands that standing alone does not mean you are abandoned. It means you are being set apart. It means you are being positioned. It means you are being prepared for something greater than you ever imagined. So stand tall, keep moving forward, keep walking in the power that has been within you all along, because your story is not over. Your best days are not behind you. The woman you are becoming is unstoppable. And when you finally step into everything that was meant for you, you will look back on this season and realize that standing alone was never a loss. It was the beginning of your rise.